Ukraine has the largest military in Europe, 800,000 soldiers. They've been on a war footing for 3 years. Their soldiers are the best trained, and they're using some of the most advanced weapons in the world. They've developed the most advanced techniques in the world. And Trump wants to give all of that to the Russians. Why? Well, firstly, he wants to normalize the act of criminally invading another nation to steal property, to steal their land. He is a criminal, and he thinks that this is something that should be appropriate. He wants to normalize it so Russia can do it and the U.S. can do it. And his expectation is that within a year or two, Russia will use that Ukrainian military know-how and all of that equipment and invade the rest of Europe. So if you're in the rest of Europe, you better be cognizant of this, because this is coming your way. This is his plan. If he allows this to happen, okay, where Russia just takes Ukraine, then this is the plan. It's going to equip Russia, and it's going to enable Russia to invade and take the rest of Europe. And NATO is still an existing entity and will continue to be an existing entity, but the U.S. is out of it. They're effectively out of NATO now. They're no longer an active part of NATO. They're not going to be working on behalf of other NATO countries. So then what's going to happen? Well, the U.S. is going to try and then use that normalization of invading other countries to take and invade other lands. And that is their plan. And how are they going to do it? Well, there's lots of ways that they could do it, but first they've got to try and polarize their population to get them to agree to that. So this discussion of Gaza, of basically stealing Gaza, kicking the Palestinians out of there, is going to trigger a backlash. And the backlash is going to come from the Muslim world. And it's going to come with something bad happening to the United States. We know that. Iran might back it. It could be from whoever. And those types of things, as we saw with 9/11, polarize Americans and will persuade Americans to go do stupid things, especially when they're already a fairly belligerent country to start with. So they're going to end up with something bad happening. And those people who do that something bad, they're probably going to say came from Canada. They crossed the border into Canada. That is this whole setup of saying that we've got a porous border. We don't have a porous border. Bad people are not going to the U.S. From Canada. It just doesn't happen. And we've got very small number of people crossing our borders illegally. Of course, it's their responsibility to govern and police their own border. But that will be the setup. After there's something bad has happened to the U.S., they will then blame Canada and try and justify an invasion of Canada. At the same time, of course, they're going to use this to justify an invasion of Greenland and ultimately Mexico, okay, because this is their plan. Their plan is for Europe to fall to Russia, the U.S. and Canada to fall to the United States and Greenland, and ultimately just divide the world up. So there'll be Europe, Russia, United States, including Canada and Mexico and Greenland. Let Africa fall to itself. South America, they don't really care about it. Let China just take over the rest of Asia. That is their plan. And, they don't form good plans, right? Their plans are stupid plans, but they are not necessarily ineffective, because we've seen this before, right? The U.S. invasion of Iraq was based on complete lies. It was a complete fraud, and Americans went along with it, and the rest of the world was looking at it saying, this is bullshit. We're not joining you. And Afghanistan, okay, it was an attack on the U.S., and so NATO joined in. Canada was there along with the Americans and other NATO countries in Afghanistan to deal with the fact that there was an attack on the United States. But when it came to the invasion of Iraq, the media just went along with the fraud. They convinced the American public that this was something that they should do. They invaded Iraq. So the foundation has been laid for this, and Trump is trying to set this up, and this is their stupid plan. I'm hoping that Europe recognizes what's going on and puts themselves on a war footing, because normalizing this is just facilitating it, and they're going to end up with millions of dead people in a fairly short period of time. This is not something that weighs heavily on the minds of either Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump, because both of them are the type of guys who are only concerned about their own power and their own aggrandizement. And when Trump thinks of making America great again, his idea of that is expanding into other countries and stealing land and genocide and killing people. And that's his plan. That's what they want to do. And that's what Putin's doing. So I think we have to be very clear-eyed about this, because what might sound like a crazy conspiracy so far from the most of the people who have been critical of the U.S. and what was sort of laid out has turned out to be correct. And my years of studying history and looking at these people in the U.S. and the way they're behaving leads me to this conclusion that they are trying to normalize stealing other countries and all of the bad things that go along with that, and that this appeasement of Putin is something much worse. They intend to hand over Ukraine, which has tremendous military capacity, to Russia, and Russia knows it, right? The quality steel is made in Ukraine. The quality metals come from Ukraine. The Ukrainians are far more resourceful than the Russians have ever been, and they're trying to hand it over to Putin for the sake of Putin then being able to invade Europe. And I'm not just talking about Europe, the UK too. So gear up.